Hi there, Roger Brooks here, and today I'll answer the questions. How the heck do we fix our downtown? What comes first, people or the right mix of shops and activities? Where does beautification and facade improvements fit into all of this? What do we do with the empty storefronts? In this video, I'll try to answer all of these questions and more, including the 10 steps to activating your downtown, which is, without a doubt, a top priority. We'll visit a number of towns, see what they did, and we'll close with my very favorite small town, Rosebud, Alberta. What they were able to accomplish is nothing short of astonishing and gives great hope to any and every downtown, regardless of size or location. So please enjoy How the Heck Do We Fix Downtown? For the next hour, we are going to dive in, and you are going to hear the case history of Water Valley, Mississippi, and the power of champions, especially women, in their case. We're going to talk about Parowan, Utah. How do you get people to even stop? And then we're going to talk about pop-up shops, even container shops, and other ways to activate downtown, including creating activities that will get people downtown consistently. Then I'm going to share with you the case history of Littleton, New Hampshire, and how they leverage an anchor tenant to get their downtown really going. We will also talk about window displays in empty buildings, and we will close with the case history of Little Rosebud, Alberta, which really proves the point that you're never too small to really make a difference. And so to dig right in, we are going to go visit Water Valley, Mississippi. You can see the little red arrow there pointing to Water Valley. You can see the nearby college town of Oxford, which is about, 20 minutes away. You can see at the very top of your screen the city of Memphis. The population here in Water Valley is about 3,400. And it was a railroad town that pretty much died, and even a local resident said our high point was in the 1920s. So 100 years later, what are they doing about it? So in this case, you are going to meet Megan, Coulter, Aaron, and Alexa, who are 4 women in their 30s, now early 40s, that came into this town basically from Oxford and thought, you know what, we could really do something with this cute little town. And they're only 25 minutes from Oxford, and they could get like a 25-foot wide storefront for about $600 a month. I mean, this town was dying. And they started this whole thing in roughly right around 2011, 2012. The first thing they did is get this little teeny, what used to be a barber shop, now Yellow Studio, right there. They borrowed a couple $1,000 and got a $500 facade grant, and they paid about $200 a month to create this little textile gallery, which is now Taylor Run Textiles. And Coulter started this, and she now really focuses on quilting and textile products, a lot of quilting fabrics and everything in this tiny little space, which is really quite cool. And so sometimes it just takes, one small entrepreneur in a tiny little space to get things going. Then one of her friends, one of the 4 there, Alexa, bought this building for $110,000. She didn't really have the money, but she was able to work with local banks and financial institutions. The owner of this building was going to sell it for the bricks. They were going to just tear it down. But he was happy to unload that building to her. And so she decided to do an old-fashioned grocery store and eatery. She was never going to outcompete the big box stores in Oxford, so she had to do something different, a little more organic. She had no clue what she was doing, and she even says that. And so she dug in and created this great little store that has all kinds of things that you're not going to find at every other grocery store. Little pastas and sauces and international foods, and even Yellow Busha, Copperhead, they have a brew house there now. And so it's just this organic little store, even things like fresh produce and things that are locally grown or sold there. And it is just an awesome place that has really become the anchor tenant in their downtown. And remember, this was a place that was about ready to be torn down. It was all done on a shoestring budget. Her husband and their friends, they would go work evenings and afternoons to go in there and gut the building and repaint it and everything. And it was all just kind of working on and on and on to make this happen. And by the way, you see it says the BTC Old Fashioned Grocery Store. BTC, I love it. It's a quote from Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. I absolutely love that quote. And this store is an exact perfect example of exactly that. Then on the heels of that, they created Beaux-Arts Gallery. So now they have galleries in this little town. Look at the old tin roofs and the beautiful chandeliers and local artisans. You know, there's a brew house there. There's the Crawdad Hole. You remember, this is in Mississippi. And so over time, these four women started to get people pumped and enthused. And even the locals that had kind of given up on their downtown saw new life and they caught the vision. And it wasn't long before these four were featured in the New York Times in a major article about Water Valley, how they revived a derelict Mississippi town. You know, and they got all kinds of press everywhere. Main Street Revival evolves into Boomtown, and it is still going strong. You know, the lessons learned from this, it takes a small team of champions willing to try something. You know, it's a couple $100 a month, or we're going to take a chance on this, see if we can get our locals involved. And then, of course, there's the age-old saying that if you want something done, leave it to a woman. Well, you know what? In this case, this team, and by the way, they were working individually and together. And then the third thing is they got locals willing to believe and offer support. You know, that they wanted this. They wanted their town to come back. It was, you know, it's easy to be a Pied Piper and get followers, but it's more difficult to become the Pied Piper. You have to take a risk, and that's what they did. The entire goal, by the way, was to reduce the leakage of money earned in Water Valley, but being spent in Oxford. And then rather than wait for someone else, you just do it yourself. Very, very powerful lessons about having champions to just get things started. And you start with a little teeny, you saw that, what used to be a barber shop. It had been vacant for like decades. And look what's happening. And that was just touching on it. I would urge you to check out Water Valley, Mississippi when you have a chance. The next one I want to take you to is across the country in Parowan, Utah. Their whole goal was, how do we get people to stop? You can see where Salt Lake City is up on the map, and you can see where Las Vegas is. They're about halfway between the two. You can see where St. George, Utah is, and far off to the right, Denver. Well, Parowan is a little town of about 3,000 people. It's along Interstate 15, but its downtown is about 1.5 miles off of the interstate. So it's not like the interstate runs right through their town. And so just to give you an idea, this is Parowan, primarily residential, and people that might want to go skiing up in Bryan Head, they're kind of down on the western foot of the mountains there, would come in off the exit. They would come here and they would come down this way, and this is their downtown. It's basically less than 3 blocks long. And then they would cruise through downtown on their way to the next destination. And so once again, you can see how they would travel through, where they would go into downtown, and then they're out of town. How do you get people to stop in these 3 blocks? Now, these I had to borrow from Google Earth, but you can see that things have been working pretty good. They've got new sidewalks going in, and this is pretty much their entire downtown, what you're seeing here. And so this is not like it's a big downtown. Their primary anchor tenant, which is their attraction, would probably be the Parowan Cafe right there where you see that arrow. So they're desperately looking for something that would get people to stop. And I went there and I said, you need to be known for something. It could be as simple as the best cinnamon rolls you could find in Utah or even the West. Well, it turns out the Parowan Cafe had cinnamon rolls, and they're pretty well known for them. So together they worked to perfect those cinnamon rolls so that people would actually say they are the very best cinnamon rolls in the West. They started putting up signs saying the sweet tour coming soon. See what we have to offer in Parowan. And you know what? Their whole goal was if we could get 10 cars to stop and spend $20 a day, that would be $6,000 a month in retail sales that they don't currently get. And so next to that, so 10 cars spending $20. Cinnamon roll might cost just $2 or $3, but maybe they will buy coffee or hot chocolate or milk or breakfast with it. And that is how you start. And their whole goal was to also have 25 businesses that would feature their own interpretation of cinnamon or cinnamon rolls. And so the Parowan Cafe, of course, Katie Lister, the owner, she jumped on the bandwagon. It's a great little cafe. It's a very small town, but that's what we love about it. And so these cinnamon rolls became front and center in her menu. Next door to her is Bev's Floral, and she sells cinnamon roll scented candles. Down the road is Victoria's B&B, and they feature their own delicious cinnamon rolls with a different recipe, so they're not competition. And then even Teasin and Tannin, a little tanning salon, actually sells cinnamon flavored or cinnamon smelling bronzer. And so the whole town started to jump on this whole cinnamon bandwagon. You'll see this at Bev's Floral. Cinnamon is how we roll. Get it? And it was pretty cool. And there you see the streets being torn up as they're widening the kind of the highway through. You can see a mercantile there. There's a local restaurant there called Calvario's Family Restaurant. And in that restaurant, they sell an amazing cinnamon apple chimichanga. Next time I'm there, I have got to stop to try that. An apple cinnamon chimichanga. See, so everybody could tap into it. The local Mexican restaurant has their own cinnamon churros. So everybody is on this simple little bandwagon. The next thing you know, the press started getting it. This is the Spectrum that handles pretty much all of southern Utah, finding Parowan's sweet spot, the mother town, which was what they were known for before, is making a push to increase tourism by launching a new cinnamon roll themed campaign. And then with a little bit of money and some grants, they went out on Interstate 15 and put up billboards like this. They actually got press, television in Salt Lake City to actually come down there, and the news reporter said these are the best cinnamon rolls in the West. So now they actually have a third-party endorsement that says they own the cinnamon roll brand in Utah. And then they hadn't had a new business open up in downtown in probably 25 years. And then all of a sudden, Dan Ortega opened up Papa D's Bakery and Coffee Shop right downtown. And he is well known for his homemade cinnamon rolls and his cream pies. And so all of a sudden, this started to work. So people coming there were far more than 10 cars were stopping. They were getting 200 and 300 cars a day stopping. I mean, it went beyond, as a matter of fact, they had a challenge. It went beyond what they thought they could do to where they were running out of cinnamon rolls by about 9 o'clock in the morning. And Dan sells these. You can see the chocolate chip and blueberry scones, the best in the West cinnamon rolls. When you come into town, you can grab one of these little cards. And what's really cool, it will tell you where you can find it, their address, their phone number, and it will actually tell you where you can find cinnamon rolls and food, and then cinnamon memorabilia, gifts, and services. Look at that. Even the barbershop is jumping into the campaign. And of course, you can even buy cinnamon roll keychains there. So here's the point. They have more than 20 places that offer something to do with cinnamon, and 4 to 6 places that offer actual cinnamon rolls, each with their own recipe. and they have their locals actually vetting them, make sure they deliver on the promise with different recipes. They pair them with other foods and drinks. You can just stop in, eat in, you can take out. They're working on annual bake-off and events. You can buy ready-to-bake or take-home cinnamon rolls. They're offering starter kits. Pastry chef classes are coming. And they're even getting their school kids involved, so it's more than just marketing. The new bakery opened up in town and other businesses are coming. How long did this whole thing take? 1 year. This little town really didn't have a whole lot to offer. And now all of a sudden it is winning. So the lessons learned from this is you got to promote that one thing that sets you apart. And if you don't have it, come up with something. In this case, they had it. They never even thought about the Parowan Cafe's cinnamon rolls. They started small with the cafe and then they let it grow. And other people said, wow, I want to get involved with this. And so they were able to get others excited about. Then they looked for help promoting it. Iron County Tourism, that's the county they're in, helped pay for those billboards to get Parowan going, which is really cool. And so then they started to get creative with events and pole banners all about the Sweet Tour in Parowan. They got the press and social media involved, and all of a sudden Parowan was on the map. And getting people to stop is a great way to start getting your downtown going. So in their case, they took Parowan Cafe, leveraged one menu item, and then the florist next door got into it. And then an empty space turned into a bakery. And that is how you get things started. So that is the power of how to get downtown started. Now, the next one I want to cover are pop-up shops. This is where you have vacant buildings and what do we put in them? And so, some towns have done a great job. I mean, this is one example of a town that actually this is in Dayton, Ohio, so it's a bigger city, but the same model works for you. This is where they told property owners why they should get involved with their empty spaces, why they should let pop-ups use their empty spaces. Number one, it would give them online exposure to the property, whether it's for sale or whether it's for lease. Number two, it gives them increased foot traffic to that space. Number three, there's a lot of sweat equity going into refurbish that space. And I'm going to show you an example of that. And then number four, it gives them flexibility. What happens is that the Downtown Association works with the property owner to make sure we find the right match for the building. So they really work with the property owner and make sure these pop-up stores are the right fit. And they get flexibility with rents. Number one, it's like you might get a percentage of the sales, or you might get so much per square foot, or it might just be a flat rate including utilities. And these pop-up stores might have a 30-day lease, clear up to like 6 months. So this is not a 3 to 5 year lease where somebody comes in and if they go out of business, it's a great way for incubator, small little business to see if it will work. And these property owners aren't paying any real estate commissions, so there's really no cost to them. And then there you go with the shorter leases. And the goal, of course, is to have long-term occupancy at market rate rents. And so they even, the Dayton even provides a small stipend granted to the tenants, like getting Square point of sale system, where they can take credit cards, just to get them started. And then they also help foot your bill, taxes, insurance, utilities. It provides a revenue stream to the property owner. Granted, it's not market rate, might be a couple $100 a month, but it's why they should be involved. And this is what their current list is. They have a custom furniture and decor store in a pop-up store, a beauty salon, a marketing agency, a barber shop, a digital marketing agency, a social services agency. I think downtown should be more about retail and restaurants, but still you're utilizing empty spaces. They have a soccer program that really focuses on kids and their mental well-being. A spice and packaged food store, cupcakes and candies, and even a second barber shop. And it's a great way for them to try it, see if it works. I mean, how fantastic is that to get a downtown started? This is in an empty store, and they just took this corner. where they're selling shirts, t-shirts, and those kinds of things. So you can see how you just get things started. Here's another example. This one is only running for 8 days. One cool thing about pop-up stores is even local residents. I wonder what's going on downtown. I wonder who's in that space this month. And it might be jewelry, it might be shoes, it might be antiques, who knows? I mean, even in Muskegon, Michigan, they had an empty lot downtown and they built these pop-up shops. There's 5 of them here, and they're each about 90 square feet to 150 square feet. These little buildings cost between $500 and $5,000 and $6,000 to build. So they're actually little chalets. So you could build these, you could even sell them down the road and have them move to other locations. But for $5,000 to $6,000, you create small business opportunities in these 90 to 150 square feet spaces. And guess what? You know what? You see 5 of them right here, and they have a waiting list to get into these that is 25 names long. But what a way to use a vacant building space in the downtown. It is part of the Muskegon Western Market. So they have a farmer's market that just pops up, but then they have these little pop-up stores. And they now have 17 of these chalets. It's created this whole little market village in their downtown. Each one of them has an air door. That is a little fan that goes over the door on the inside that blows heat or cooling straight down, so they can have the doors open so people can see inside, because they don't have big window storefronts. So these air curtains keep the cold out and the heat in, or vice versa. And you can see how busy it is for the holidays. And what's really cool is they don't even have to, the public restrooms are behind the chalet. So they all share public restrooms along with their customers. And then, by the way, they are required to have certain hours and days that they're going to be open. This is not like you rent one and then you can open whenever you feel like. And so they had to make sure that there's consistency in the days and hours that they're open. Now, these people pay like $1,300 a month to $2,000, a little over $2,000 a month. This is in US dollars. But the point is, it only takes 5 or 6 months to actually pay for the chalets. And then after that, they could reduce the rents if they needed to. But even at this, it gives these small businesses not an exorbitant amount of rent to pay. That includes any utilities, which is basically electricity. And it just works, and it operates May through December. For most towns, I'd like to see it work year-round, and I know they're working that way. But right now, they have it going through this about an 8-month period. And we're also going to include for you what Baraboo, Wisconsin did. It's another small town, and they did a pop-up program. And we're going to provide this for you so you can see what they did as maybe a model that you can use. And they do their applications once a year, what the requirements are, and how it all comes about. So we're going to provide that for you. Now, one more I wanted to share with you is my good friend Jeff Bueller that runs the New Jersey Main Street program was involved with the state a few years back when they celebrated their 350-year anniversary. Now, some of you are saying, oh, the U.S. isn't that old. Well, you know what? There were settlers here a lot, part of the United Kingdom or Great Britain way before we became a country. But 350-year anniversary, and so what they did is they decided to go into some towns and take empty storefronts and create pop-ups. And so this is one of those spaces. So just to show you, now here is an empty store. You can see the counters kind of ripped up there, and it looks like it used to be a really cute store at some point. So they went to the property owner, and it falls under his insurance. But in some towns, they will actually create a rider that goes on their downtown association that would also insure this. But so the property owner said, sure, you can do this. And these pop-ups were there for a couple weeks. But the goal is that they stay popped up. So this is before, this is after. See, they didn't even repaint it. What they did is they put a countertop there. They added some bookshelves. They put clothing in them. And so this is just a pop-up store. It took a couple weeks to put together. And then New Jersey Main Street provide them with the point of sale system. You see they take Square there. And the guy right behind the arrow is my friend Jeff, who runs New Jersey Main Street. And it's pretty cool what they did. And what's amazing is these locals were flooding into these little cool pop-up shops. What's really amazing about this little experiment, you might call it, or this 350-year celebration, is that 89% of the empty retail shops were full by the end of that year. That is 9 out of 10. Because people could go in there in these pop-up shops and they did really well. And they said, well, gee, let's sign a lease. We're here now. And by the way, 13 of the 14 participating communities saw new retail leases as a result of the pop-up program. Pop-up stores are great. The other option is to do like container pop-ups. Now, one thing, we started doing research and we found out that these containers are very, very expensive. So like those chalets for $5,000 or $6,000 are great. Pop-ups like this little bagel shop or this coffee shop can run anywhere from $40,000 to over $100,000. Containers seem to be really, really popular. So I'm not going to go into too much depth in this, but they're pretty cool, the things you could do. In Halifax, Nova Scotia, look at that. This is just a trailer. It has the regular doors on the back. It has just a window on the side. And they run Segway tours out of this. They built a little temporary deck out in front of it. Here's another one also in Halifax where they just rent bikes. Notice they put like a chalkboard on the inside of the door there. You can see kind of behind the post where they talk about where you can go on your bikes and how much it costs to rent and everything. But this is the value of pop-ups or even those little chalets if you can. You know, and here they have one that's a little more permanent, but you can see how it all closes up. And in this case, you know, Halifax gets a fair amount of rain. They put this cover over it. It's got lights under the cover and everything. And by the way, this is all temporary. You can see that cover is basically just a big tent over this. And the whole goal is to move this merchant into an online store. How cool is that? There you can see a close-up of it. So if you can afford it, now they're building whole container parks full of retail and everything. So there are even builders now building these inexpensive, less expensive ones. This is built out of wood. And this is a coffee shop where they actually grind the coffee for you. Coffee's from, they call it the Siphon Coffee Company. And it was just about ready to open. So you could do chalets, you could do little things like this and put them in empty lots. If you've got empty lots in your downtown and you can't get enough of your property owners to come alongside, this is a great way to actually leverage that. So by doing pop-up shops, whether they're in empty buildings, whether you do little kiosks, those types of things, it's a great way for your downtown to become a business incubator. And the whole goal is to move them into brick and mortar storefronts. And people love changing. Oh, what's new this week? Who's there this week? Or somebody may say, hey, I make jewelry. I just opened up a pop-up shop. Come down and see me. And they'll have friends and family from everywhere coming in to support them and seeing what they can do. It's just a really cool thing to do to get downtowns started. And it's a great way to create seasonal activities and supporting retail, particularly during the holidays. For people that make like wooden toys or they make Christmas decorations, it's a great way for them to say, how can I get these out there in our downtown without much cost? And finally, it adds excitement and activation to downtown. Now, when it comes to activating downtown, pop-ups are a great way, but one thing I want you to avoid is making streetscapes your primary draw. I've worked in hundreds and hundreds of cities and towns where they will spend millions of dollars making their downtown look fantastic, and they're still dead as a doornail. For a quarter of the cost of doing a streetscape, you will see how you can spend way less money and make your downtown a better draw. Now, I'm not saying that streetscapes aren't important, but what's most important is what's in the buildings. The rest is window dressing. So if you make downtown look pretty, but you don't address who's in the buildings, you're not going to win. And so let's go through this. You know, number one, don't get hung up in streetscapes. Number two, what comes first when you are trying to make downtown work? People there on a consistent basis. It's not if you put the retail in, people will come. No. How do we get people downtown and the retail will follow? So what makes up this consistent basis? And if you know me and have heard me, you know what I say, 250 days a year. But you could start with 100 days. That'd be like a Friday and Saturday for 50 weekends. So here's how you make this happen. I want you to move away from events to activities. So here's the problem. You have the same set of volunteers working every year. They'll work almost all year long on an event that lasts a day or two at most. That's the problem. You know what? Doing 30 or 40 days of events in your downtown is not enough to sustain one single retailer. I would rather have you spend the same amount of time programming your downtown 100 to 200 days of activity, not special events. You know, the picture you see right here is in Boulder, Colorado. It's a little splash pad. It's tiny. This one's built in, but still, people come there, they hang out with their kids, and you know what? They're buying lunch, they're buying ice cream, they're in the retail shops on Pearl Street Mall in Boulder. So here's what you do. First of all, I want you to find a side street, an empty lot, or even a wide sidewalk and activate it. Here are some ways you can activate it. You could get chessboards like these. You can buy these on Amazon for, I think they're like $800 US. But you know what? It comes with the board. It comes with all the pieces. Look at this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what happens if you were to buy, you get a local bank to sponsor these and they buy 2 or 3 of them and you put them out. And by the way, you can see here a couple guys playing it. You can see how they're hollow. These are pretty inexpensive and they're great. In this case, you can see how it's actually built in. They use paver stones to build in the board. So all they had to do is buy the pieces. That saves you another $100. And by doing 2 or 3 of these with chess or even checkers. So can you imagine putting these kinds of activities downtown so there's something to do? You know, many cities now are even putting down ping pong tables like you see right here. Or in this case, here's where they did a little plaza, got all the tables and chairs, but you will see right there, there's a foosball table. Oh, by the way, there's a second foosball table. And oh, look over there, there's a ping pong table. You could have a bank sponsor these. You could have a grocery store sponsor these, a law firm, an accounting firm. And where it says Kettler, the name of the foosball table, you could actually stencil on their name of their business name, brought to you by such and such. So this is a way to do this on a shoestring budget. You know, even doing things like chess tables like this, and people could bring in their own pieces, or you might have a couple sets sitting around. You can invite local artisans. These are not events, they're activities. You tell local pottery guilds, quilt guilds, street artisans, hey, we'd love to have you hanging out in our downtown. You know, and they could be doing chainsaw art or having even pottery guilds coming in with potter's wheels. They could even have people trying to make their own pottery. It's just a great way to bring life to your downtown and also add some cultural depth. We've even seen portable glass blowing studios where people will come. And by the way, if you're sitting there, the potter is also selling their wares around them, but it allows people to do hands-on workshops. And this could be done just on a sidewalk. You could invite food and vendor trucks. And I've heard the argument, oh, it competes with our restaurants. No, it doesn't. Ask your restaurant this. Do you compete with McDonald's? And if they say, well, no, then you don't compete with food trucks. It's a different experience. I'm going to give you one example. This is Porter's Real Barbecue. This is Porter and his wife, Kate. This is their food truck. It is in Richland, Washington. This food truck was very, very popular. It was in downtown, and it worked so well that they opened up in an empty space an inline store right in the middle of downtown Richland. It's a great, great store, and it is Porter's Real Barbecue. It is done so well that they go through 1,500 pounds of beef and pork every day. As a matter of fact, they are now opening up a second store, and it all started with a food truck. And people will drive half an hour out of their way just to have lunch or dinner at Porter's. See, that's the power of pop-ups, food trucks. That's the whole idea. So how do you get these? What I would have you do is go to your local county fair or a neighboring county fair and talk to vendors there. Say, hey, we are working on revitalizing our downtown. What would it take for you to come into our downtown? You could tell me the week you want to come or 2 weeks that you want to come. So they might say, well, we have a fair schedule and everything, but boy, we're down for this week. Why don't we come in your town that week? And you say, great. And you know what? You might make 5%. You might do a deal with them and say, hey, we'd like 5% of your gross sales so we can help market you. Or market the next one. Or you could just say, look, if you come downtown, it's free. Whatever you make is all yours. So what you do is you go to these, you carry around your calendar, and then you have them pitch in, which week would you like? Which week can you come and join us? And you might get 1, you might get 2, you might get 10 of them. And you keep moving around. The whole idea is to have downtown always changing and always with something new so that locals are always saying, I wonder what's going on downtown this weekend, or I wonder what's going on downtown tonight. Oh, I heard there's a slush factory coming in. We should go down there. And even in the winter, I mean, this is in Waterloo, Ontario, in front of a drugstore and a bank and a mall where they actually took what used to be a parking lot and they created a little ice skating rink. You know, you could even go rent ice skating rinks. You could buy an ice skating rink. This one happens to be synthetic. And it's actually pretty amazing how accurate and how ice-like a lot of these synthetic rinks are. In this case, they rented one. You can see the sponsors there. See them back there, Oakville, Royal Canadian Bank of Canada. I'm proud to support our community. They paid for the ice. So it's just a way to bring life to downtown. Now, one thing that's really important with these is that they be placed where people can spend money, not behind your retail stores, not in a park. They need to be directly adjacent. So this one here, it's a great idea, but it's not right next to retail. And that's one thing I would change. You know, you could even go buy 3 or 4, and these could be sponsored too. Wayfair has these. Propane fire pits. Couldn't you imagine doing an ice rink and then having 5 or 6 fire pits up and down your sidewalk with a few chairs gathered around? How awesome would this be to activate your downtown even during the winter months? You know, places like doing things like this are terrific. And by the way, you can't let weather be an impediment to bringing your downtown to life. You can buy these tents or rent these tents, and you could put, foosball tables and those things under there. So weather is never an object. And a lot of places rent these, or you can even get these sponsored by locals. Then talk about summer activities. See what you see here? This is pretty much a portable splash pad. So if you can't find or afford the real thing, splash pads tend to be pretty expensive. Look at this. Here you can buy 7.5-foot portable splash pad with a safer surface on it and everything. And this has LED lighting. It's $3,000. And it's 7.5 feet and it's just hooked to a hose bib. And power for the LED lights. But there's all kinds of ways to, can you imagine going buying a few of these, maybe not even that expensive, a lot of them are a lot less, and you put like 5 of them up and down on a side street. So you'd close off the side street to traffic, of course, and then you put 5 or 6 of these out and you run hoses to them during the summer months. You can buy these little, pop-up things that fit on top of them. It's just a way to bring downtown to life. Can you imagine a downtown that had an ice rink for 120 days and a splash pad for 120 days? There's 240 of your 250 days. It's activity, not events. Start with Fridays and Saturdays and maybe Sunday afternoons. Go from 11 in the morning till 8 p.m., Sunday, noon to 5, and just bring downtown. Start with that. Now, where it should be, once again, is sidewalks, vacant lots, side street, but always make sure we're right where people can spend money. And that is the trick. This puts potential customers to the front of your retail shops and restaurants. I always say, let's do 20 weeks. You could do 20 weeks where you have 7 days activity, and maybe you have another 20 weekends where we just do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoons. I was just in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where they're doing an ice castle. This is from somewhere else, and they were just building. People were coming downtown every day to see this ice castle starting to build there. So once you have some of these ideas, and I just gave you a few with the chainsaw carvers and the splash pad and portable ice rinks and chess and checker games, but imagine developing a calendar. So I took a stab at a calendar, and I didn't try to fill every single week. But in this case, you can see I put an ice rink that would operate 7 days a week in January. It might have some fire pits. You might even have vendors there selling hot chocolate, hot cider, those kinds of things. And so you see right there, I filled up 4.5 weeks in January. February and March, I didn't put much in there, but then you could see in April, if we just had tables and chairs downtown, people could just hang out there. That still creates activity. Maybe in April, you do a garden show on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now, you may say, well, that's an event. You know what I would do? I would go to a local nursery or local 2 or 3 nurseries, say, look, we want you to open up a shop, a pop-up shop outside Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right on our side street, right on our sidewalks, so that they're doing the work, not you. And once again, you're supporting a local business, you're bringing them downtown. Then you can see at the end of April for a week, we have a portable skate park. I'm going to show you that in a second. Then in May, I said, we could have that portable skate park there for 2 weeks. Then the next 2 weeks would be Imagination Playground. I'm going to show you that. Then you might go back to putting those tables and chairs back out. Then you might, for 2 weeks, put out the chess sets, Jenga blocks. You can buy Jenga blocks for $80. They're like 4 feet tall. Pretty cool. And then you put Imagination Playground back out in June. Maybe even have a vendor bring in a climbing wall. See what I mean? And I'm going to show you some of these. You might have portable bocce ball courts happening in July for 2 weeks, and then that skate park comes back for 2 weeks. October, you might do a scarecrow festival for the whole month. And maybe on weekends, you do tailgate parties. You put out those tables and chairs and people are watching hockey games, football games, college, professional, you name it. They're starting to watch these games and have tailgate parties. And by the way, a lot of these can overlap. You can see in August says FM, that's a farmer's market. You see the FM through all of these. That's a farmer's market that might run every Saturday. While you have Imagination Playground, hangout tables and chairs, then you can see the ice rink in November and December again. You might even have toy shows where local vendors come down on Fridays and Saturdays and with their homemade toys, jewelry, and other things. You know what? You just saw this calendar, and it fills up nearly 40 weeks of activity with like 6 different changes. See, because they repeat. This is a portable wood skate park that can actually be moved around. You could even go do this. Fresh Park sells this. And by the way, we don't get any money for these. We're just showing you, this is just one example. It's park in a cart. It's got the instructions. You could buy the whole thing for $4,500. And then it comes apart, and then it's easy to store. And you know what? You can even get all these different options. You can see a little mini park for $1,500, a driveway park for $2,100. And so you can see what you can do here. And once again, you get sponsors to do these, to help pay for them, or grants. And what you're doing is on a side street in an empty lot. Now with skate, you need to have a paved surface. You can't just do it on gravel. But there's just one idea, and this would be used 2 or 3, 4 times a year for 2 weeks, then it goes away, and then it comes back. How fun is this? In little Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia, population 1,000, one of my favorite towns in the world, every October they do a scarecrow festival. And I'm telling you, I was there in the middle of the week, in the middle of October. It was packed 7 days a week for 4 weeks. And here's a great debate when they were had somebody running for Prime Minister of Canada. And so they had it there, the great debate spin. Here's the royal family right downtown. Even a local pizza shop got into the act with him. There he is spinning his pizza. I love this. How cool is this? And every single shop did their own. So this is activities over an event that lasts a day. This lasts an entire month. Here's even an example of Harry Potter. You can see Dumbledore there. And I mean, you've got the whole thing going on. And it's actually a contest in front of the B&B. You can see the women there having a tea party. And even Alice in Wonderland. How cool is that Mad Hatter's tea party? Even here at a local business, it got Marilyn Monroe up there on the roof. See, these are activities and each business does their share. How fun is this in activating your downtown? And finally, you go out there and you cultivate sponsors. You do these little A-frame boards or A-boards that say, this is sponsored by, this exhibit sponsored by, the chess set sponsored by, and they're helping fund it. When it comes to sponsors, you can look at local banks, auto dealerships, arts organizations if you've got them. I mean, even Kiwanis, Rotary, Elks, Eagles, all these auxiliary organizations, they're all about making communities better. Even school districts can get into it with like Imagination Playground. They may say, hey, we're gonna loan Imagination Playground to downtown for 2 weeks, and the rest of the time it's going to be on one of our school playgrounds. And if you get a chance to look at Imagination Playground, they're really cool. It's like Lincoln Logs, but out of foam. Hardware stores are great sponsors, retailers, restaurants, your city or town, the county. Even families will sponsor things. This is philanthropic to help their downtown succeed. We've seen architects, engineering firms, law firms, accountants also do it. And then you market the heck out of the activities. You do a calendar of events and you say, we're going to have the skate park. These are the weeks. We're going to put tables and chairs out there. You can go buy food at a local restaurant, bring it downtown. I mean, even doing this, Eureka Springs, story time and song, 3 dates left, live music at the next. And so what you do is you put it on Facebook. Facebook would be number one for social media. Then you tell the local press. You can even have radio stations, if you have it, or newspapers will even be a sponsor with you. Pinterest, Twitter, you name it, Instagram. And these, by the way, would be kind of the priority. So, lessons learned from this. This provides the best return on investment on volunteer time and on sponsorships. I see cities and towns go spend millions of dollars building baseball diamonds, hockey rinks, other parks. But here you actually create a return on investment because you're rebuilding your downtown. You're improving those property values. It is the least expensive way to revitalize a downtown. It engages your locals first, and then visitors will follow. It's always changing, so it gives people a reason to come downtown and see what's new this week or next week. And it's a perfect precursor to an actual built program plaza, which is the future of downtowns. We even have a video in the Destination of Home Library that gets into way more detail, including costs, on those 250 days. In Littleton, New Hampshire, another way you could do it is if you have an anchor tenant to promote the heck out of them. Sometimes I say we can't use public money to promote private business. Oh, come on. Can you imagine Orlando never mentioning the word Disney? So what you do is you get and heavily promote your anchor tenant. In Littleton, New Hampshire, which is a town of about 5,000 people, but this is their downtown. This is the core downtown area. It's basically a couple blocks long. And in the middle of that is a little place called Chudder's. Here is a picture of downtown Littleton right here. And you can see right where that arrow stood is Chudder's. So, what is Chudder's? It is a candy store. Its claim to fame is that it has the longest candy counter in the world. People drive way out of their way to go to this candy store. And what's amazing is once they're there, they'll say, oh, let's go into that shop. Let's walk down the street over there. Let's get something to eat here. When you have an anchor tenant, people are going to gather around it. That's why if you go to Orlando, you will see 172 attractions gathered around Disney, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, on and on and on. They're all there because the anchor tenant is Disney. In this case, it's Chudder's. It's an amazing candy store that is a destination in itself. And then all of a sudden, because it was there, other people started to put in shops and benefit from leveraging them. It only takes one anchor tenant to get things rolling. Then a small business opens next door. It does take some patience. And then publicity, social media, peer review sites like TripAdvisor made Chudder's one of the big attractions there. And then it can take 10 years to really build out your door downtown. But in this case, you started with basically one anchor tenant. The other thing you need to do is also work on, if you have empty spaces, window displays. This is in Helper, Utah. There's now a gallery behind those big frame pictures, or the hanging pictures you see there. But while it was being built, that was it. They had actually curtains behind there, and that's all you saw. But with your empty spaces, doing little displays like you see here in Helper, that's an empty building, but at least you added something to it so that you didn't just look into empty, scary buildings. All these buildings in Helper are being revitalized and redone, but temporarily, they just put things in the windows just to make it so it's not scary for people. You know, you could even give a building, say, hey, we're going to pay you $50 a month. All we want is 2 feet so that we can put some displays here. And these displays might be rented to online retailers or other small businesses that work out of their house, or that may even be down the street. You might have something that's not right in the downtown, but they could go rent a display in one of these buildings. And in this case, you can see there's like angled plywood behind it. And then they just put in displays in front of it and pay a few dollars a month. And in Helper, they even took alleys and just with I think this was less than $1,000, rather than make it a dingy alley, they made it work. And so, finally, we come to Rosebud, Alberta. In their case, they said, how do we become a destination? You can see where Edmonton, Alberta is. You can see where Calgary is out there. But Rosebud is out in the Canadian Badlands. They're out in the prairie. There it is. You don't see a lot of cities. You see farms all the way around them. I mean, it's about as rural as you can get. They're an hour and 15 minutes from Calgary. And this is downtown Rosebud. Yep, we're going there. In 1972, the local school shut down, and the population ended up getting down to about a dozen people. I mean, it pretty much was becoming a ghost town. So in 1973, it became a summer camp for 40 teenagers who would come from the Calgary area, and they would rent an old building like this one, and they would just do a summer retreat with a focus on performing arts for these 40 teenagers. 4 years later, it became the Rosebud School of the Arts. And in 1983, it became like a post-secondary art school. When you come into Rosebud, you will see this. It's known for the wild roses that grew on the prairie. And what happens is they have a little theater there. What happens is you will go into the Mercantile you see in the right hand. Pretty much this is downtown. The theater's off to the right of this picture, but this is one of their half-bloods. You can see the Mercantile on the right there. Across the street is their little museum. And this is behind the Mercantile. It's not really a meat market anymore. It is now another retail store. And here's what people do. They will come there to go to the theater. They will buy a buffet dinner in the Mercantile. And they do that before every performance. So they go in the Mercantile, they get a buffet dinner, they come out, and they head over to the Rosebud Theater. Here it is. It used to be an opera house. and it seats about 220 people. And so they do some amazing, amazing shows there every year. And so you see Sherlock Holmes. I mean, they do like 141 days of performances in that little theater. Sherlock Holmes, Winfield Lost and Found, Bright Star. You can see some of the films they do. And even though it seats 220, this is professional theater. This is the set of On Golden Pond. And they run April through December, nearly 200 performances. Plus, they do backstage tours. They do talkback with the director. And you know, I'm going to show you a little 3-minute video. And so let's take a look at this.
The harvest is in, and it's a bumper crop.
A bumper crop?
You bet it is.
The harvest.
The harvest.
What's the harvest?
The harvest? Good question.
Harvest was our fundraising campaign. Raised over $800,000.
The harvest.
The harvest is...
It's a metaphor that we created, where we compared Rosebud School of the Arts to fertile soil.
Yes, and we compared a student to a seed.
And your donations were the sunshine and rain that helped everything grow and produce.
The harvest?
Exactly. But I think what you're really asking is, what is the harvest to Rosebud?
Okay.
To me, the harvest is 30,000 meals served.
Assisting 30 students by subsidizing close to $5,000 of their tuition.
Produce 7 plays for 35,000 people.
Subsidizing 5,500 tickets to our senior patrons.
18 actors in the middle of rural Alberta.
Maintain a resident company who act, mentor, and teach students.
Purchased a new hearing assist system.
The harvest.
Yep, the harvest is in, and it's a bumper crop.
Thank you, Angels of Rosebud and Guardians of Education, for your outrageous support of the Harvest Campaign.
Now, isn't that cool? So, with that money, they have the Rosebud School of the Arts. You can see the things that they do there. Rosebud Center of the Arts right there. It's amazing. You can go to Rosebud and get your 15 minutes of fame at the annual Rosebud Music Festival. They had what were little teeny shacks or little teeny houses now are offering unique gifts. This right here, see that little trailer right there on the right, went from that to this, artisan wares. They have a great little cafe there. And you know, at this is the Thorny Rose Cafe. How cute is that? They have got the Rosebud Country Inn, which is absolutely fabulous. When you go in there, you can find local artisan wares there, and they are known for their pies. And I can't wait to actually stay here at the inn. They even have the little historic Hotel Rosebud. And you know what? They even have the 2019 season is already filling up. They bring in 35,000 people a year. So welcome to Rosebud, Alberta, where you will see the population is 88. That's right. I love the sign. So many people come to the middle of nowhere that it becomes somewhere. It just takes one idea, you know, and sometimes it takes a while for people to get used to it. A couple of champions willing to push it forward, some patience, and then encouraging others to tap into it, like you saw with that little garage. And then businesses that fit the clientele. These are people that spend at the top of the dollar. And you are never too small to do something big and win. And look at the reviews of the Rosebud Theater. So at the end of the day, and in wrapping up, forge the entrepreneurial team, like the first women you met in Water Valley. Forge that team that are willing to go in and rent some spaces or do pop-up shops. Find a niche like they did in Parowan, whether it's cinnamon rolls or something else. It doesn't have to be major. Develop a pop-up show. You know, activate your downtown. Move away from events to activities. And then promote your anchor tenants and leverage them. Install window displays to lessen the fear factor. And just remember that anyone, anywhere can make this happen, and plan to 5 to 7 years. It takes some patience to do this, but success breeds success, and never, ever give up. So here's to getting your downtown off the places to avoid list and on the way to becoming a fantastic place to spend time.